Hello everyone, welcome to this series on the history of English literature. And in this video, we are going to discuss the development of poetic style in the Age of Transition. Introduction. The Age of Transition, encompassing the mid to late 18th century, was a crucial period in English literature that bridged the gap between the classical and romantic eras. This period witnessed significant changes in poetic style as writers began to move away from the rigid conventions of neoclassicism towards more expressive and individualized forms of poetry. The evolution of style during this time reflects a broader shift in cultural and artistic sensibilities, laying the groundwork for the Romantic movement that would flourish in the early 19th century. Characteristics of transitional poetic style. Retention of classical elements. In the early part of the Age of Transition, many poets continued to employ traditional stylistic features characteristic of neoclassicism. Regularity of meter. Strict adherence to established metrical patterns such as iambic pentameter was common. Formal figures of speech. Frequent use of rhetorical devices like personification and apostrophe added grandeur and formality to the poetry. Elevated diction. Poets often utilized lofty language and conventional phrases that had become standard in poetic expression. An example of this style can be seen in Thomas Gray's ode on a distant prospect of Eton College. Ye distant spires, ye antique towers, that crown the watery glade, where grateful science still adores her Henry's holy shade. And ye that from the stately brow of Windsor's heights the expanse below, of grove, of lawn, of mead survey, whose turf, whose shade, whose flowers among wanders the hoary Thames along his silver winding way. In this excerpt, Gray employs personification, grateful science, and uses formal expressions like watery glade and hoary Thames. While adhering to classical conventions, the poem also infuses a new spirit of introspection and emotional depth. Emergence of new stylistic elements. As the century progressed, poets began experimenting with styles that departed from strict neoclassical norms. Regular blank verse. William Cowper adopted blank verse with a more natural rhythm, allowing for greater expressive freedom. Lighter heroic couplet. Oliver Goldsmith used a more relaxed form of the heroic couplet, making his poetry more accessible. Archaic language and themes. Thomas Chatterton experimented with medieval themes and archaic language, creating a unique poetic voice. Simplicity and emotional intensity. Poets like Robert Burns and William Blake embraced simplicity and directness, focusing on genuine emotion and personal experience. These developments signaled a move toward valuing individual expression and emotional authenticity over formal perfection. Examples of transitional poetry. Robert Ferguson's Collar Water. Scottish poet Robert Ferguson (1750 to 1774) exemplifies the natural style that anticipated the works of Robert Burns. In his poem Collar Water, Ferguson writes, "As simmer rains bring simmer flowers, and leaves to clead the birken bowers, say beauty gets by collar showers, say rich a bloom, as for estate or heavy dowers, aft stands in room. What makes all Ricky's dames so fair? It canna be the halesome air, but collar burn, beyond compare, the best on aye, that gars them a sick, graces share, and a blink say bonny. On May Day in a fairy ring, We've seen them round St. Anton's spring, frae grass the caller dewdrops ring, the wheat therein, and water clear as crystal spring, to scent them clean. In this poem, Ferguson uses Scots dialect and vivid imagery to celebrate everyday life and nature. The language is unpretentious and lively, capturing the essence of Scottish culture and landscape. This natural style and use of regional language paved the way for later poets like Burns. Shift in themes and language. The transition in poetic style also involved a shift in thematic focus and language use. Inclusion of regional dialects. Embracing local speech patterns made poetry more relatable and authentic. Emphasis on nature. Nature became a central theme, not just as a backdrop, but as a source of inspiration and reflection. Personal emotion. Poets explored personal feelings and inner experiences, moving away from the didactic and impersonal tone of earlier poetry. These changes reflect a growing interest in the individual's connection to the natural world and the expression of genuine emotion. Towards Romanticism. The stylistic developments during the Age of Transition set the stage for the Romantic era. Rejection of artificiality. Poets moved away from the artificial constraints of neoclassicism, seeking more organic form of expression. Individualism. There was a newfound emphasis on the individual's perspective and inner life. Emotional depth. Poetry became a means of exploring and conveying deep emotions and personal experiences. Innovative use of language. Experimentation with language, including the use of colloquial speech and innovative metaphors, became more common. These elements became defining characteristics of Romantic poetry, as seen in the works of Wordsworth, Coleridge, Shelley, and Keats. Conclusion. The Age of Transition was a period of significant stylistic evolution in English poetry. While early transitional poets retained some classical features, they infused their work with new energy, emotion, and individuality. By embracing simplicity, natural expression, and personal experience, poets of this era broke away from rigid conventions and opened the door to the Romantic movement. Their contributions expanded the possibilities of poetic expression and left a lasting impact on the trajectory of English literature. So this was the discussion on the development of poetic style in the Age of Transition. We will meet in the next video and discuss some other topic. Until then, goodbye and thank you.